I'm 78 years old, and I need to tell you something that nobody told me when I was your age. Something I learned far too late. For most of my life, I thought being a good woman meant saying yes to everyone. My husband, my children, my parents, my friends, my boss. I thought that's what love looked like. I thought that's what strength looked like. I was completely wrong. I spent 60 years trying to be perfect. The perfect wife who never complained. The perfect mother who always put her children first. The perfect daughter who never disappointed her parents. The perfect employee who worked overtime without asking for recognition. And you know what all that perfection got me? Exhaustion, resentment, and a life that never felt like it was truly mine. 7 years ago, everything changed. My husband died after 42 years of marriage. One moment he was there, the next he was gone. And for the first time in my adult life, I was completely alone. The silence in the house was deafening. And I was terrified, not just because I missed him, though I did, but because I realized something that shook me to my core. I had no idea who I was without him. I had spent my entire existence being someone to somebody. Someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's helper, someone's support system. But stripped of all those roles, who was I? What did I actually want? What made me happy? I sat with those questions, and I couldn't answer them. That terrified me more than his death. Let me take you back to where it all started. I was 22 when I got married. It was 1968. The world was different then. Women didn't have the choices you have today. Or at least we believed we didn't. My mother sat me down before the wedding and told me, "A good husband is all you need in life. Everything else will follow naturally." So I married him. A decent man, a good provider. And I became exactly what I thought a good wife should be. I cooked 3 meals a day. I cleaned the house until it sparkled. I raised the children with patience and care. I supported his career ambitions without question. I smiled when society expected me to smile. I stayed quiet when I was supposed to stay quiet. I made myself small so he could be big. And here's the strange part. I wasn't miserable, not exactly. I loved my children deeply. I enjoyed parts of my life. But there was always this quiet voice in the back of my mind whispering, "Is this it? Is this really all there is?" I ignored that voice for 40 years. When I was 35, I wanted to go back to school. I'd always loved literature and dreamed of becoming a teacher. I wanted to stand in front of a classroom and share my passion for books and stories. But my husband said we couldn't afford it. The children needed me at home. Maybe later, he promised. So I waited. Years passed. The children grew older. When they finally started high school, I brought up school again. But by then, my husband was thinking about early retirement. We'd need to save money. We'd need to help care for his aging parents. Maybe in a few years, he said. So I waited again. When I was 55, his parents had passed away. I thought, finally, now it's my turn. Now I can pursue what I've always wanted. But that same year, our daughter got divorced. She had 2 young children and needed help. How could I possibly think about myself when my family needed me? What kind of mother would I be if I chose myself over my grandchildren? So I waited again, and again, and again. Then, at 71, my husband died, and suddenly there was nobody left to wait for, nobody's needs to put before my own, nobody's schedule to work around, just me and the echo of all those postponed dreams. Here's what nobody tells you about being a woman, especially a woman from my generation. We were taught that self-sacrifice was the highest virtue, that putting everyone else first made us noble, that our worth was measured by how much we could give away, not by who we actually were. It's a beautiful lie, a terrible, soul-crushing lie that I believed for 6 decades. Because, here's the truth, I learned too late. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot love others fully when you've abandoned loving yourself. You cannot give everything away and expect to have anything left for your own soul. I gave and gave and gave until I was hollow. And when my husband died, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the exhausted, sad stranger staring back at me. The first year after his death, I was completely lost. I'd wake up with nothing to do. No one to cook for, no one to serve, no one to organize my day around. For 60 years, my entire identity had been wrapped up in other people's needs and expectations. Without them, I felt like I was floating in empty space with nothing to hold on to. But then, About 18 months after his death, something unexpected happened. I found an old letter he'd written to me before we got married. In it, he talked about my intelligence, my curiosity, my passion for learning. He wrote about how excited he was to see what I would accomplish in life, what mark I would leave on the world. I sat on the kitchen floor holding that yellowed paper and I cried. I cried because that brilliant, curious, passionate girl he'd described, I'd buried her alive. Not all at once, but slowly, year by year, I'd put her dreams aside. I'd told myself I was being selfless and noble, but really, I was just disappearing. That's when I made a decision that changed everything. I was 72 years old, and I decided it wasn't too late to find myself again. I enrolled in community college, literature classes, art history, philosophy, everything I'd always wanted to study but never had the chance. I was the oldest student by decades, but I didn't care. For the first time since I was a young woman, I felt truly alive. I started traveling too. Small trips at first to places I'd always dreamed of seeing, museums, historical sites, beautiful landscapes, and it was wonderful. I walked through art galleries alone, taking as much time as I wanted. I sat in cafes reading books without anyone waiting for me at home. I made my own schedule, followed my own interests, lived according to my own desires. Then I started practicing the hardest thing of all. I started saying no. My children would call, asking me to babysit. Sorry, I have plans, I'd say. My friends would invite me to social obligations I didn't want to attend. No thank you, I'd respond simply. And you know what happened? The world didn't end. People adjusted. They learned to respect my boundaries. And I felt lighter than I had in decades. I'm 78 now, and I finally know who I am. Not somebody's wife, not somebody's mother, not somebody's helper. Just me. A woman who loves literature and art and long walks alone, who enjoys her own company, who travels when she wants, who says no when she means no and yes when she means yes, who takes up space unapologetically. But here's the heartbreaking part that keeps me awake some nights. I wasted so much precious time. 60 years of my life I spent being who I thought I should be instead of who I actually was. 60 years of putting myself dead last. 60 years of shrinking myself smaller and smaller to make room for everyone else. And I can never get those years back. They're gone forever. So let me tell you what I desperately wish someone had told me when I was 20, when I was 30, when I was 40, when I still had time to change course. You are not selfish for having dreams of your own. You are not selfish for wanting things for yourself. You are not selfish for saying no to demands on your time. You are not selfish for taking care of yourself first. These are lies we're told to keep us small and compliant and useful to everyone except ourselves. You think you have all the time in the world. You think, I'll pursue my dreams later, after the kids are grown, after I get that promotion, after I retire, when things finally calm down and I have space to breathe. But things never calm down. There's always another reason to wait. Always another person who needs you. Always another obligation demanding your attention. And before you know it, you're 70 years old and you've never once lived for yourself. Don't make my mistake. Don't wait for permission to live your own life, because that permission will never come. Nobody's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, okay, now it's your turn. Now you can pursue what makes you happy. You have to take it. You have to claim it for yourself. You have to be brave enough to disappoint some people so you don't disappoint yourself. If you want to go back to school, go now. Don't wait until your kids are older or your schedule clears up. It never will. Do it now while you still have energy and time. If you want to change careers, change now. Don't wait for the perfect moment, or until you've saved enough money, or until everyone in your life approves of your choice. The perfect moment doesn't exist. Do it now. If you're in a relationship that makes you feel small and invisible, leave. I know that's terrifying. I know you've already invested years. I know you're afraid of being alone. I know you think it's too late to start over. But it's not too late. It's never too late to choose yourself. Your life is not a practice run. This is not a dress rehearsal for some future performance. This is it. This is the only life you get. And every single day you spend living for someone else, trying to meet someone else's expectations, shrinking yourself to fit someone else's vision of who you should be, that's a day you're not truly living. I know what you're thinking. But what about my family? What about my responsibilities? What about being a good person? And I'm telling you from experience, you can be a good person and still have boundaries. You can love your family deeply and still have your own life. You can fulfill your responsibilities and still pursue your dreams. These things aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, you'll be a better mother, a better partner, a better daughter, a better friend when you're living authentically, because you cannot give from a place of resentment. You cannot love others well when you're angry at yourself for abandoning your own dreams. You cannot show up fully for anyone when you're running on empty. The women in my generation were taught to be small, to be accommodating, to smooth things over, to never make waves, to always put others first. And we did it. We followed those rules perfectly. And in doing so, many of us disappeared entirely. But you don't have to. You have choices we didn't have. You have opportunities we couldn't even imagine. Don't waste them trying to be perfect for everyone else. Because here's the brutal truth. You will never please everyone. No matter how hard you try, how much you sacrifice, how perfectly you perform, there will always be someone who thinks you're being selfish. There will always be someone who's disappointed in your choices. There will always be someone who wants more from you than you can give. But the only opinion that truly matters is your own. Can you look at yourself in the mirror and feel proud? Not because of what you've sacrificed for others, not because of how much you've given away, but because you're living a life that feels authentic and true to who you really are. I look at young women today and my heart breaks because I see them making the exact same mistakes I made, saying yes when they desperately want to say no, putting their dreams on indefinite hold for their partners, their children, their parents, shrinking themselves to fit into someone else's narrow definition of what a woman should be, making themselves smaller and quieter and less demanding. And I want to shake them awake. I want to tell them to stop. Stop right now before decades slip away. Your dreams matter. Your voice matters. Your desires matter. You matter. Not because of what you do for other people, but simply because you exist. It took me 72 years to learn that lesson. 72 years to realize that I was allowed to take up space in the world, that I was allowed to have wants and needs and boundaries, that I was allowed to choose myself without guilt or shame. Don't take 72 years to learn what I'm telling you right now. I'm 78 years old. I've been truly living for myself for only 6 years. 6 years out of 78. And these have been the best 6 years of my entire life. I'm happier now than I was at 30. I'm more myself now than I've ever been. I'm finally free from the prison of other people's expectations. But I would give absolutely anything to have those lost 40 years back. To have started living authentically at 35 instead of 72. To have said no when I meant no. To have pursued my dreams when I first felt them stirring. To have taken up space instead of constantly shrinking. But you still have time. You have so much time ahead of you. But only if you start right now. Only if you stop waiting for the perfect moment or for someone's permission. Only if you stop automatically putting yourself last in every equation. Your life is happening right now. Not later when things are easier. Not someday when everyone else is taken care of. Right now, in this very moment. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to live it boldly and authentically for yourself? Or are you going to wake up one day at 78, like me, and realize you spent your entire precious life living for everyone else while your own dreams died quietly in the darkness? The choice is yours, but you have to make it today, because time doesn't wait for anyone, and neither should you.